Welcome to the first episode of Verity's podcast.
It's great to be here.
Today, we're doing a deep dive into something, well, absolutely fundamental, sleep.
Something we all do, hopefully enough of.
Right, but think about it. The average adult, they spend something like 20 years asleep. 20 years.
It's a massive chunk of life. And honestly, the core reasons why we need it so badly still kind of being puzzled out.
It is humbling, isn't it? Such a basic need, and science is still, uncovering the layers.
Absolutely. And for you listening, if you're someone who wants to get the essentials, understand what really matters without getting bogged down.
And have those aha moments.
Exactly. Then this deep dive is designed just for that. We're cutting through the noise, getting to the core insights from recent research.
Yeah, our mission here isn't just about feeling less groggy in the morning, though that's nice too.
Sure.
We want to unpack the science showing how sleep is woven into our biology, way beyond just resting the mind.
And the tools they use now, incredible. Optogenetics, focused ultrasound, giving us views we never had before.
It really is next level. So where should we start? Maybe with just how critical sleep actually is for survival.
That's a powerful starting point. Dragana Ragulja's work. Some really striking stuff there.
Okay, let's get into that. Her lab looked at sleep deprivation, but they didn't just assume it was all about the brain.
Right. They threw the net wide, as they put it. What happens if you just take away most of the sleep?
And what did happen?
It is pretty stark, both in fruit flies and in mice. Once they lost about 90% of their nightly sleep, they started dying.
Dying? How quickly?
Typically within about 10 days.
10 days. That's incredibly fast. Really drives home that it's not optional.
Not at all. A fundamental biological need. And it challenged that initial thought, that maybe it's only the brain that suffers dramatically.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you only look at the brain, you might miss the bigger picture.
Precisely. Which kind of leads us nicely into another angle, Keith Hengen's perspective.
Okay, Hengen, what's his main idea?
He focuses on sleep, maintaining the reliability of the brain's machinery. Less about a specific task sleep does, more about keeping the whole system stable and functional.
Reliability. Okay. How does he explain that? He uses an analogy, doesn't he? Something with AI?
Yeah, exactly. He talks about catastrophic forgetting in machine learning.
Right.
If you just keep pouring new data into these AI networks without letting them consolidate or sort of reset, they become unstable. They forget old stuff. Performance crashes.
So the idea is our brains are maybe a bit like that, needing a regular reset to keep learning effectively.
That's the hypothesis. Sleep is that reset period, brings the brain back to what he calls a critical point.
A critical point, meaning?
Basically, the optimal state for processing information, for learning new things. All the activity during the day changes connections, and sleep recalibrates it all. Keeps us ready for the next day.
So that tired feeling, it's not just low energy, it's maybe the brain saying, okay, time for that essential maintenance cycle.
Could be. He also uses a simpler analogy, like a thermostat in your house.
Okay.
Homeostasis.
Exactly. Temperature drops, the heater kicks in to bring it back to the set point. Hengen suggests maybe our brain activity drifts too far from this optimal critical point during wakefulness.
And sleep is the process that brings it back into balance. Makes sense.
It makes that feeling of sleepiness seem much more active, biologically speaking, like a signal for crucial work to begin.
So what is the work? What are the mechanisms in the brain doing this resetting?
Well, research is pinpointing things. Like a 2024 study showed parts of the hippocampus key for memory quiet down during sleep.
Quieting down to sort of prepare for the next day's memories.
Possibly. Allows those neurons to recover, be ready to encode again. And then there's the synaptic homeostasis idea from a 2017 mouse study.
Synapses.
Yeah.
The connections between neurons.
Yep. They strengthen when we learn and experience things while awake. Sleep seems to dial some of them back down, prune them almost. Restores a balance so we don't get overloaded. Fascinating. Pruning the connections. But going back to Ragulja's work, the really severe damage wasn't even in the brain initially, was it?
That was the kicker. Alexander Vaccaro, in Ragulja's lab, found the gut took the biggest hit in those sleep-deprived flies and mice.
The gut! Seriously, what was happening there?
A massive buildup of reactive oxygen species, ROS.
ROS, right. Those are byproducts of metabolism. Usually okay in small doses.
Exactly. They have roles in immunity, signaling. But without sleep's restorative processes, they just accumulated in the gut, reached toxic levels.
Wow. So the digestive system was essentially being poisoned by these molecules because of lack of sleep.
Seems like it. which really shows how system-wide sleep's effects are. It's
That's
not just a brain thing.
definitely not. Was it just the ROS or other gut issues too?
They also saw problems with fat metabolism in the mice. Fats were piling up in the intestines.
So not getting absorbed properly, like the body was starving even though the fat was there?
Precisely. The gut wasn't processing nutrients correctly while the rest of the body needed them. A major breakdown in function.
That's profound. A lack of sleep disrupting nutrient uptake. What about like at the genetic level? Does sleep deprivation change gene activity?
Oh yes. Studies in rats, fruit flies,
Yeah.
they show when sleep is deprived, genes involved in energy metabolism, hormone reception, making proteins, even managing glucose and dopamine, they get upregulated.
Upregulated, meaning the body is trying harder to compensate, working overtime at the genetic level.
That's how it looks. Trying to cope with the stress of no sleep. It paints this picture of sleep being fundamentally necessary for just basic biological operations.
Yeah, way beyond just feeling tired. It's about cell health, digestion, gene expression, everything.
Exactly. Which brings us to another really interesting, though maybe slightly more debated area, the glymphatic system.
Ah, making Niedergard's work. The brain's housekeeping system, right? Cleaning out waste during sleep.
That's the one. The theory is that during sleep, this system gets way more active. It uses cerebrospinal fluid, CSF, flowing along channels around blood vessels.
Like little donut-shaped tunnels, I think I read.
Yeah, that's a good visual. CSF flows in, mixes with the fluid surrounding the brain cells, picks up waste products.
Like those proteins linked to Alzheimer's, amyloid beta and tau.
Exactly those.
Hmm.
Picks them up, and then the fluid drains away, carrying the junk with it, taking out the trash, essentially.
And the key finding was this happens more during sleep.
That was the landmark 2013 study in mice. Niedergard's team found the space between brain cells. The interstitial space actually expanded by about 60% during sleep.
60%, that's huge. So more room for the fluid to flow and clean things out.
That's the idea. Better fluid exchange, more efficient clearance of things like amyloid beta. A really strong link between sleep and clearing out potentially harmful stuff.
Is it just passive flow or is there something driving it?
More recent work from 2025, I think, suggests it's more active. It involves norepinephrine levels changing during deep sleep.
Norepinephrine. That affects blood vessels.
Right. It seems the rhythmic pulsing, the constriction and dilation of arteries in the brain during deep sleep, driven by these norepinephrine changes, actually helps pump the fluid along. It actively promotes the cleaning.
So deep, slow-wave sleep is prime time for this brainwash cycle.
Seems to be. But, as you hinted, it's not totally settled science. There's been some pushback.
Okay, what's the counter-argument?
Well, a 2024 study from Nick Franks' lab used a different method, a fluorescent tracer, and they concluded that clearance was actually reduced during sleep.
Reduced. That's the complete opposite.
It is. Niedergard and others have questioned the methodology, though. They argue Franks' team might have been measuring tracer movement within the brain tissue, not its actual exit from the brain.
Ah, so like shuffling the trash around inside versus actually taking it out the door.
Kind of, yeah. So the debate is ongoing about the exact mechanisms and how best to measure clearance. It's complex to study in a living brain.
Sure, I bet. But even with the debates, Niedergard links her theory back to that synaptic homeostasis idea we talked about, doesn't she?
She does. She frames it as, brain plasticity, all that learning and adapting we do when we're awake comes at a cost. It generates metabolic byproducts.
And sleep, with this glymphatic cleaning, is the price we pay. The time needed to tidy up after a busy day of brain activity.
That's the connection she makes. Sleep allows for that essential restoration and cleaning needed because our brains are so dynamic.
It really ties together nicely the need to reset connections, clear out waste, all happening during sleep. And it's not just complex brains, right? This need for rest goes way back.
Way back, they found sleep-like states even in Hydra.
Hydra, the little freshwater blob things with no central brain.
Exactly. They have periods of quiet inactivity, reduced responsiveness, and they even show sleep pressure needing more rest if deprived. It suggests the need for some kind of rest cycle is incredibly ancient, predating complex nervous systems.
Wow, that fundamentally changes how you think about it. It's not just for brains. And what about hormones? Sleep's role there.
Oh, huge. Sleep is critical for regulating hormone release. Things like growth hormone, cortisol. Their rhythms are tied to sleep cycles. Poor sleep throws all that off.
Cortisol, the stress hormone. So better sleep helps manage stress partly through hormone balance.
Definitely seems to play a role. And there's even research, that it's still early days, looking at melatonin, the sleep hormone, and potential links to suppressing certain cancer cells. very complex interactions.
And Phyllis's work on pink noise. That linked sleep quality to hormones too, didn't it?
It did. Pink noise seemed to enhance slow-wave sleep, and they saw lower morning cortisol spikes in those participants.
Lower stress response, basically. What else did they find?
Better memory consolidation, which fits with the brain reset ideas,
Okay.
and also improved parasympathetic activity, the rest and digest part of the nervous system, lower heart rate, lower blood pressure.
Ah, so a direct link between good sleep and cardiovascular health.
Absolutely. Chronic poor sleep is consistently linked to higher heart rate, higher blood pressure, major risk factors down the line. Dr. Z emphasizes that connection strongly.
This really paints a picture of sleep as this cornerstone of overall health. Mind, body, everything.
It really is. And, for anyone listening who struggles with anxiety interfering with sleep, understanding this can actually be helpful.
How so?
Well, when your body and brain get that proper restorative sleep, that homeostatic reset, the hormonal balance, the cleanup,
Yeah.
you're just fundamentally more resilient.
Right. Your baseline is stronger, so you're better equipped to handle stress and anxiety when it comes up.
Exactly. It's not a magic bullet, but ensuring your biological systems are running optimally through good sleep provides a much better foundation for mental well-being.
That connects to sleep pressure too, right? That feeling of needing to sleep that builds up.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sleep pressure is that biological drive. It partly comes from chemicals like adenosine building up in your brain the longer you're awake.
Adenosine, isn't that what caffeine blocks?
Yep, that's why caffeine keeps you alert. It blocks the adenosine receptors. But the adenosine is still building up.
So managing sleep pressure is about letting that buildup happen naturally and then getting sufficient sleep to clear it out.
Pretty much. Consistent sleep schedules really help regulate that cycle, working with your body's natural rhythms and allowing all those restorative processes we've talked about to happen effectively.
It really reframes sleep, doesn't it? From passive downtime to this incredibly active, vital period for repair and regulation.
It absolutely does. It's
Yeah.
essential work happening behind the scenes.
So given how incredibly important all this science shows sleep to be
Yeah.
for brain health, gut health, hormones, resilience, we actually wanted to mention something that might help support that.
Yeah, building on this science.
We're really pleased to mention Oravita. It's a supplement formulated specifically to help support your body in getting that restful, restorative sleep we've been discussing. If you're interested, there's a link to check it out and purchase in the description.
And if you want to go even deeper into understanding all this, Verities has actually just launched a new book all about the science of sleep.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, it goes into much more detail than we can here, but still keeps it really accessible. It's aimed at helping you not just sleep better, but really understand why it matters so much for your long-term health.
Excellent. And there's a link for the book in the description, too.
Yep, the link for the book is right there as well.
Perfect. So let's kind of wrap up the main takeaway here. What's the big picture?
I think the big picture is stop thinking of sleep as just off time. It's profoundly active. Your brain is resetting, cleaning house. Your gut is dealing with metabolic stress. Your hormones are regulating. It's essential biological maintenance.
Yeah. Far from being passive, it's when some of the most critical work gets done. It really affects everything.
It does. Which leads to kind of a final thought to leave people with.
Okay.
If sleep, this thing we thought was just rest, is actually buzzing with all this vital activity,
Yeah.
what other states that seem passive might be hiding undiscovered biological importance? What else are our bodies doing when we think they're just idling?
That is a fascinating question. What hidden processes are still waiting to be understood? Food for thought.
Definitely.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the science of sleep. We hope you found it insightful. Remember to check out the links for Auravita and the new Verities sleep book in the description. Thank you for listening to the Verities podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Verities Podcast.